Listen closely, because the story you're about to hear will shake your heart. On a frozen night when even the wolves hid from the cold, a starving Apache widow staggered through a deadly storm with her 2 children, believing she wouldn't live to see another sunrise. But when she reached the door of a poor rancher and whispered, "Please, take my children," something happened that no one in the Wild West expected. Before we ride into this powerful tale of sacrifice, courage, and fate, make sure you subscribe, share, and comment. Now, let's start this story. The storm screamed across the dead plains like a living monster, ripping at the earth with frozen claws. Snow flew sideways, sharp as shattered bone, burying everything it touched. But even in that merciless white hell, a lone Apache widow fought her way forward. Naya's breath broke into frost as she stumbled through the storm, clutching her 2 starving children close. Her daughter's hand was ice. Her son's cries were weak whispers. The wind wanted them buried. The night wanted them dead. But the mother's heart refused to surrender, not until she found somewhere, anywhere, safe for her children. Her steps faltered as the cold numbed her bones, but she pushed on, dragging her children with strength she no longer had. Days earlier, raiders had burned her winter camp, taken her husband's life, and left her with nothing but grief and the impossible duty to keep walking. No food, no shelter, no help, only endless white emptiness stretching miles in every direction. Her children tried to be brave. Her daughter whispered stories to keep her brother calm. But their small footprints sank deeper each hour, as if the snow itself wanted to swallow them forever. Naya felt her vision dimming. Her body trembled with each desperate step. She could hear her heart slowing, each beat heavier than the last. She knew the spirits were close. She knew her time was ending. But she also knew one thing as clearly as she had ever known anything: her children must not die with her. She searched the endless storm with fadding eyes, begging silently for one final sign, one last path, one last spark of hope. Just something, anything, that could save the little lives hanging by a thread beside her. And then she saw it, a faint, flickering light cutting through the blizzard like a blessing from the sky. A lantern, a fire, a home. Shaking violently, she forced her legs to move faster, half dragging her children toward the distant glow. Her breath tore from her lungs, her knees buckled, but she pushed onward until her numb hand finally struck the wooden door of a small ranch house half buried beneath snow. She knocked, weakly, desperately, almost silently. It was the last strength she had left. Her children trembled beside her, barely standing. Inside, Elias Kane sat alone beside the fire, sharpening the same dull knife he had sharpened every night since his wife died 3 winters ago. The ranch was silent, empty, and cold in ways no fire could fix. He lived each day because living hurt less than dying. The knock at the door startled him. It was too soft, too fragile to belong to any man. Taking his rifle, he moved to the door and opened it slowly. What he saw froze him in place. A starving woman collapsing forward, 2 half-frozen children clinging to her like wilted leaves. Her lips trembled as she tried to speak. Her voice cracked into a painful whisper. "Please take my children." Elias stared, stunned by the desperate plea. She wasn't asking for food, not warmth, not help. She was asking him to save her children because she believed she would not survive long enough to do it herself. The horror of that kind of love hit him deeper than he expected. The children looked up at him with hollow eyes, their faces the very shape of fear itself. In that single frozen second, Elias Kane understood what he had to do. He lowered the rifle immediately. "Not just them," he said, stepping out into the snow. "All of you." The woman's knees buckled, and before she could fall, Elias caught her in his arms. He lifted her inside, wrapped her in blankets, and set the children near the fire. They were shaking so violently that he fed the flames higher and higher, warming stones, boiling water, cooking whatever scraps he had left. He had little, but he gave everything. He worked through the night, refusing to rest, refusing to let death claim the family fate had dropped at his door. By dawn, the storm calmed. Naya awoke slowly, the warmth of the fire touching her once frozen skin. Her children slept safely beside her, their breathing soft, steady, alive. Elias sat on a stool near the fire, eyes heavy from exhaustion, watching over them like a silent guardian. When she tried to sit up, he moved to steady her. She stared at him as if trying to understand why a stranger had fought so fiercely to protect her family. Elias simply said, "You needed help." Yet the weight in his voice told her he had saved more than lives that night. For days they remained trapped together inside the ranch, while the snow piled up around the outside world. Elias fed the children, mended their torn clothing, and taught them simple chores to distract their frightened minds. The house, once suffocatingly silent, filled with soft footsteps and small giggles again. Nea regained her strength piece by piece, helping Elias when she could, watching him with gratitude she didn't know how to express. Something unspoken grew between them, a gentle connection not born from romance, but from survival, courage, and shared loneliness. The fifth morning, the wind finally died. The world outside was white and still. Elias stepped out to check the ranch, but the moment he looked toward the distant ridge, he froze. 3 riders were coming fast, men from the nearby town. He recognized them. They weren't friendly, they weren't patient, and they did not tolerate Apache on white men's land. Elias tightened his grip on his rifle. Inside the house, Nea felt danger ripple through the air. She gathered her children quickly, her heart pounding. Their safety, their future, everything hung suddenly in the balance again. The men dismounted with suspicious eyes. One leaned forward, spitting into the snow. "Cain," he said coldly, "you got Apache in your house?" Elias didn't blink, didn't move, didn't step aside. He stood tall on the porch, rifle in hand, blocking the doorway with his body. The men exchanged smirks, ready for trouble, but Elias Cain's voice came out strong, unshaking, powerful enough to cut through the cold. "What happens under my roof," he said, "ain't your business." The riders glared, gripping their guns, preparing to force the issue. And then everything balanced on a knife's edge, 1 second away from violence, 1 heartbeat away from destiny. For a long, tense moment, the world stood completely still. The 3 riders stared at Elias like wolves sizing up prey, but Elias did not move from the porch. Behind him, inside the ranch house, Nea held her children close, listening to the voices outside as her heartbeat thudded hard against her ribs. She had seen men like these before, hard, cruel, and hungry for a fight. Her children's fingers tightened around her clothing. She whispered for them to stay quiet, stay low, stay still. A single wrong breath could destroy everything Elias had risked to protect them. The rider in front, a thick-set man with a scar across his cheek, stepped forward with a mocking grin. "You're harboring Apache," he said, as though declaring a crime. Elias didn't answer with words at first, just shifted the rifle in his hands so the morning light glinted off the barrel. The rider's grin faded slightly, replaced with irritation. "Cain, you're a poor man living on borrowed luck. Don't lose what little you have over some strays." Elias felt anger rise like fire in his chest. Strays. That's how they saw Nea and the children. Elias stepped forward until he stood at the very edge of the porch, rifle held but not aimed. His voice came calm, deep, and steady. "They're under my roof. That makes them my responsibility." The scarred rider spat again. "Your responsibility or your problem?" Elias didn't flinch. "Depends on how peaceful you ride off this property." The men exchanged frustrated looks. They had expected fear, not defiance. Elias Cain had nothing. No wealth, no allies, no power. But what he did have was iron in his spine, the kind that doesn't bend even when storms try to break it. The second rider, younger and jumpier, reached slowly for his revolver. "We're not leaving till we check inside." Elias raised the rifle not to shoot, but to remind them that stepping forward meant crossing a line no one came back from. The tension thickened until even the wind seemed afraid to move. Then the scarred rider lifted his hand, stopping the younger man. "Fine," he growled. "Keep your pets, but if anything happens in town, we'll know who to blame." Elias held his ground until the men mounted their horses and rode away, disappearing into the white horizon. When the last hoofbeat faded, Elias exhaled for the first time in minutes. His hands trembled, not from fear of the men, but fear of what might have happened if they had pushed harder. He walked back inside quietly. Nea was waiting near the table, her eyes filled with worry and something far deeper. "You protected us again," she whispered. Her daughter rushed to Elias, hugging him with surprising force. Her small voice cracked as she said, "I was scared you'd get hurt." Elias knelt, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "I'm not letting anything happen to any of you." Over the next days, the world slowly softened as winter loosened its grip. The snow melted into muddy patches. Horses regained their strength. The sky brightened. With it, life inside the ranch also began to shift. Nea started helping Elias with the chores he always handled alone, cooking meals, mending worn-out clothes, sweeping the floors, even feeding the animals. Her presence brought a warmth into the house that had been missing for years. Her children followed Elias like little shadows, learning to ride, to rope, to gather kindling, laughing in ways they hadn't since their father died. Elias felt something return to him, something he thought had died with his wife, a sense of belonging, of purpose, of being needed. Naya noticed the change too. Sometimes she caught him watching her as she worked, his eyes full of something he couldn't speak aloud. And sometimes she watched him, wondering how a man so battered by loss could still be so gentle. Their conversations grew longer. Their silence grew comfortable. Their hearts grew closer, not because they rushed, but because survival had woven their lives together naturally, tenderly, unavoidably. One evening, as the sun dipped into the horizon, Naya found Elias repairing the broken fence near the barn. She approached him slowly, her hands clasped nervously. "Elias," she said softly, "you saved my life. You saved my children. I have nothing to give in return." Elias looked up, meeting her eyes with warmth. "You don't owe me anything." She stepped closer, voice trembling. "But I want to stay if you'll let us." Elias dropped the hammer he was holding, stunned by her words. The children watched from the doorway, hope shining in their eyes. For a moment, Elias couldn't speak. His heart pounded with a feeling he hadn't known in years. When he finally found his voice, it came out rough with emotion. "This is your home now," he said, "all of you." Naya's breath caught in her throat. Her daughter smiled. Her son ran to Elias and hugged his leg. And in that moment, something old and broken inside Elias Kane finally healed. They were no longer four people trapped by a storm. They were becoming a family, one stitched together by fate, kindness, and the courage to love again after pain. Spring arrived slowly, painting the plains with green. The ranch began to thrive again, as if touched by new life the moment they all decided to stay. Elias taught the children to plant their own garden. Naya cooked meals that reminded Elias of warmth he had forgotten existed. Every day felt brighter, stronger, fuller. And the town, once suspicious, learned to keep their distance, because Elias Kane was no longer alone. He had something worth protecting, a woman who trusted him. Children who adored him, a family built from ashes and ice. Then came the day Elias rode into town for supplies. The scarred rider approached him again, but this time with something different in his eyes, respect. "You stood your ground," the man said gruffly. "Not many would." Elias didn't respond with arrogance, only quiet certainty. "They're my family." The rider nodded once and walked away. For the first time since the storm, Elias felt the world around him settle, recognize, and accept the life he had chosen. The fight was over. The danger had passed. What remained was peace he never thought he'd feel again. That evening when he returned home, Naya greeted him with a shy smile that warmed him more than any fire ever had. The children ran to him, shouting his name. Elias stepped off his horse, heart full, voice soft. "I'm home," he said, and he meant it fully, deeply, completely. Naya reached for his hand. He didn't pull away. Together they stood watching the sunset bleed gold across the ranch. A new beginning, a new life. A family born from the harshest winter the West had ever seen. And none of them would face the cold alone ever again.